The digital order screen behind the counter pinged with another request, and I fought back a sigh as I balanced 3 heavy plates of steak frites, navigating the noisy dining room. The Cask and Claw was a unique establishment, a high-end bistro that catered to both humans and the city's recently revealed Lycan population. It was a place where shifters in their human forms could dine alongside everyone else with a general lack of mayhem. Of course, a certain friction always hung in the air. That's inevitable when you mix 2 groups whose violent shadow war had only officially ended a few decades ago. Table 7 steak needs to be Lycan rare. Ilera, my manager, Mr. Boren, grumbled from behind the polished bar, his one good eye tracking my every move. That means practically raw, not just pink. Don't screw it up this time. I nodded, my worn server shoes finding their footing on the split-level floor. The restaurant was designed to accommodate both species, with reinforced booths, wider corridors, and a state-of-the-art ventilation system to handle the distinct scent of a powerful Lycan. The evening rush was starting, driven inside by a sudden thunderstorm that was flooding the downtown streets. A notification buzzed on my phone, a reminder to pick up my mother's prescription, and the familiar knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Just a few more hours of this shift. The chronic respiratory illness she'd developed from the chemical weapons used during the conflict was getting worse, and the experimental treatments were bleeding me dry. Everything was expensive for a human just trying to get by in a world now run by corporate giants and powerful Lycan packs. That's when he entered. The entire atmosphere of the room seemed to shift, every conversation faltering as if the air itself had snapped to attention. That's how it felt when the heavy glass door swung open, admitting 2 figures I'd never seen before. The man was enormous, even for a Lycan, carrying himself with a quiet, restrained power that was utterly magnetic. His suit was impeccably tailored, and his dark hair was threaded with silver at the temples. His eyes, a shade of molten gold, swept the room with an unnerving intensity. Everything about him screamed wealth and authority, but it was the small figure in his arms that captured my attention. A little Lycan boy, no bigger than a human toddler, was nestled against his chest. The child's hair was a beautiful midnight black, but something was clearly wrong. His legs were encased in intricate carbon fiber braces, hanging limp and useless, and his posture was unnaturally stiff. As the man made his way to a secluded booth, I saw the complex harness integrated into the boy's vest, a device clearly meant to support his spine. No one else seemed to recognize who had just walked in, but most people were too wrapped up in their own lives to notice another Lycan with a disabled child. The conflict had left scars on everyone. They tried to settle into a booth near the back, but it was an awkward struggle. The restaurant was built for adults, not for a vulnerable child who couldn't walk. The man, who I would later learn was Valerius Blackwood, the CEO of Blackwood Industries and alpha of the continent's most powerful pack, struggled to position his son on the bench so he could see over the table. The little boy let out a soft whimper, and his father's stoic mask cracked for a moment, revealing a profound exhaustion underneath. "Let me help," I offered, moving on pure instinct. The man's golden eyes locked onto me with a force that should have sent me scurrying away. But I had already grabbed a cushioned booster seat from the storage closet, the kind we kept for human children. "Here," I said, placing on the bench to elevate the little one without putting pressure on his legs. "This should be more comfortable. What's his name?" The man blinked, clearly surprised by my forwardness. "Silas," he murmured. "His name is Silas." I smiled down at the little boy. "Hello, Silas." That a very strong name for a very strong guy. Silas's large, intelligent eyes, the color of a stormy sky, watched me with a startling focus. He made another soft sound, this one sounding distinctly more content. "The regular menu probably won't work for him," I said, gesturing to the sleek tablet menus. "But our chef, Mr. Boren, has a grandson about Silas's age. He makes a fantastic nutrient-rich smoothie. It's warm, gentle, and packed with everything a growing boy needs. I could have him blend one up, if you'd like." The CEO nodded slowly, still staring at me, as if I were some kind of strange new species. "That would be acceptable." I knelt to Silas's level, pulling my phone from my apron pocket and opening a digital comic book. It was a free app, but the art was bright and colorful. "Do you like stories, Silas?" The little boy's eyes widened as I showed him a panel of a superhero battling a goofy-looking alien. It was an old human comic from before the unveiling, back when Lycans were just things you saw in horror movies. Silas let out a delighted squeak, his hand giving a single, happy tap against the cushion. "I'll be right back with your food," I told them both, though my words were really for Silas. "You keep an eye on Captain Comet. He's about to find out that alien just want to play fetch." 20 minutes later, I returned with their orders. The CEO's steak, cooked to bloody Lycan perfection, was on one tray. For Silas, I carried a warm, steaming mug of the rich smoothie that Mr. Bourne had, to my surprise, taken great care in preparing. "May I?" I asked, holding the small spoon. The CEO hesitated, and I could see the conflict in his eyes, the primal instinct not to let a human, a member of the species that had been his enemy, feed his vulnerable son. But Silas was already making excited noises, reaching a small hand toward me. "Be gentle," the man said, a warning I didn't need. I was more than gentle. I was careful in a way that came from years of caring for my own fragile mother, from understanding what it meant to tend to someone who couldn't manage on their own. Silas drank the smoothie enthusiastically, making happy little humming sounds between sips. I kept up a quiet stream of chatter, the kind of silly nonsense kids enjoy. "Did you know, I heard there's a Lycan up in the national parks who can mimic bird calls so perfectly that he can conduct an entire symphony of sparrows." Can you imagine? Silas giggled, a sound like tiny bells. His father watched us, his expression unreadable. When a bit of the smoothie dripped onto Silas's chin, I wiped it away with a napkin without any fuss. The CEO's eyes followed my every motion. "You have experience with children," he stated. It wasn't a question. "Not really," I confessed, "but I have experience taking care of people. Sometimes that's all that matters." A group of Lycan executives at a nearby table were staring and whispering. I caught phrases like inappropriate and letting a human handle a highborn child. The CEO's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. When they were done, I brought the check for just one meal. He raised a questioning eyebrow. "Silas's smoothie is on the house," I said. Mr. Bourne's rule for a kid's first visit. It was a complete lie, but I'd cover the cost for my tips. The man produced a black credit card and tapped it on the terminal. When the receipt printed, my breath hitched. He'd left a tip large enough to cover 3 months of my mother's medication. "Sir, I can't. This is far too much. You earned it," he said simply, getting ready to leave. "No, really, I can't accept this." I tried to avoid the transaction, my hands trembling. It wouldn't feel right. Something in his expression shifted. He took the receipt, but then pressed a sleek business card into my hand. "My personal cell number, if you ever require anything." And then they were gone, leaving me with a direct line to what was likely the most powerful man in the city. I pocketed the card and finished my shift, my mind racing. That night, after giving my mother her nebulizer treatment, I sat in our small apartment and stared at the card. Our building was in the old human district, where the apartments were cramped and the air didn't carry the clean, earthy scent of the affluent Lycan territories uptown. "You're thinking too loudly," my mother said from her recliner, her breathing shallow but her gaze as sharp as ever. "What happened?" I told her everything. She laughed, a sound that quickly devolved into a hacking cough, sending me rushing for her inhaler. "My daughter," she wheezed, "too much integrity for your own good." 3 days later, they came back. Same booth, same time. This time, I had the booster seat and his special smoothie ready. The little boy's face lit up with genuine joy when he saw me. "Miss Alara," he said, his voice a high-pitched whisper. It was the first time I'd heard him speak. Lycan children learned to talk quickly, though those with developmental issues sometimes struggled. Not Silas, apparently. "Hello, little wolf." I greeted him, setting up his meal. "What have you been up to?" "Dad took me for a drive," Silas announced. "In the big car? We saw 3 bridges, 3 whole bridges?" "That's wonderful." The CEO watched our exchange in silence. Today, he looked even more strained. The skin around his eyes was tight, a sign of immense stress among his kind. "Tough day." I asked him quietly as Silas ate. He studied me for a long moment before answering. The board of directors is questioning my leadership, he said finally. A CEO who can't produce a strong heir is seen as a liability. I felt a flash of anger on his behalf. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I once had a guy try to pay his tab with a magic trick. The corner of the CEO's mouth twitched. You are very direct. It's a hazard of the job. You serve enough entitled people. You stop being impressed by job titles. This time, he almost smiled. What's your last name, Alara? Vance. Sir, Alara Vance. Have you always been a waitress? I bristled. There's no shame in it. I didn't say there was. I'm simply curious. I relaxed. I was in nursing school. But after the peace accords, when my mother's condition worsened, the medical bills are extensive. So, here I am. And your father? He died during the conflict, I said plainly. A lot of people did. The CEO absorbed this quietly. On which side? Does it matter? He's gone either way. Silas had finished his smoothie and was watching us with those wide, knowing eyes. Miss Alara, are you sad? No, little wolf. Just remembering. Dad says remembering is important, Silas said with great seriousness. Even the parts that hurt. Your dad is a wise man. Over the following weeks, they became a regular feature at the restaurant. Every few days, Valerius and Silas would appear. I learned that he was a widower, his wife killed in a corporate sabotage bombing 2 years prior. I learned Silas's disability was a result of that same attack, which had harmed him before he was born. I learned that Valerius owned properties all over the world, but stayed in this city for the advanced medical specialists who treated Silas. And Valerius learned about me, about my mother's scarred lungs, my deferred dreams, and the tiny apartment where the heater never quite worked right. Why do you keep refusing my money? He asked one evening, after I had once again calmed Silas's meal. Because I'm not kind to you for a tip, I replied. I'm kind because Silas deserves kindness. You both do. He stared at me for so long, I thought I'd crossed a line. Then he said, You are a most unusual human. Alara Vance, that's one way to put it. One afternoon, they didn't show up. I tried not to worry, but after my shift, I found myself scrolling through the business news feeds on my phone. Nothing about Valerius Blackwood. 2 days later, the burner phone he'd given me buzzed with a text. A single, desperate message. Need help? I didn't hesitate. I ran. The GPS coordinates led me to the Lycan district, a neighborhood of fortified brownstones and glass and steel towers where the air felt charged with old power. The Blackwood residence was a penthouse that took up the top 3 floors of skyscraper, but the security guards in the lobby seemed to be expecting me, waving me through without a word. I found them in a room that looked like a private medical clinic, smelling of antiseptic and ozone. Silas was on a medical bed, his breathing shallow and ragged, with monitors beeping frantically around him. Valerius was in his true wolf form, a magnificent, terrifying creature of black and silver fur, coiled protectively around the bed. His massive head, larger than my entire torso, turned toward me. The doctors say it's a reaction to the new gene therapy. His voice echoed in my mind, a form of direct telepathic communication that powerful Lycans could use. They want to stop the treatment, but it's the only thing that might repair his nerves. I rushed to Silas's side, glancing at the monitors. I may not have finished my degree, but I knew enough. His fever is critical. Lycans run hot, but this is dangerous. I looked up at the enormous wolf. You have to cool him down. Now, the doctors advised against it. The doctors are wrong. Look at his skin. See how flushed it is? His body is trying to shed heat, but can't. You have to use your ability. The temperature control. I could hurt him. You won't. You're his father. Your instincts will know exactly how much for a tense second. I thought he would refuse. Then the great wolf leaned in, and a visible aura of cold radiated from him. So perfectly controlled, it was like watching a surgeon at work. Silas's temperature on the monitor immediately began to drop, his breathing easing. Keep going, I urged, watching the readouts. Just like that. We stayed that way for 3 hours. Valerius projecting his chilling energy, and me murmuring to Silas, adjusting the cooling blankets. When a little boy finally opened his eyes, his first words were, Miss Alara. Did you bring Captain Comet? I laughed a real, relieved laugh and pulled out my phone. Of course I did, little wolf. The great wolf's head lowered until his golden eyes were level with mine. The doctor said he wouldn't have made it. Doctors don't know everything. Sometimes, all you need is someone who cares enough to see what's really happening. Why did you come? You asked for help. Asterisk, is that all? That's your only reason? Asterisk, I gently smoothed Silas's hair. Isn't that enough? The next day, Valerius came to the bistro in his human form. He waited for my shift to end and asked to talk. We sat in the same booth where it all began. I have a proposal, he said. I want you to become Silas's full-time caregiver and physical therapist. I nearly choked on my water. I'm not qualified. You saved his life. I got lucky. No. His voice was firm. You cared. You saw what my multi-million-dollar medical team missed because you were looking at my son, not at his condition. He leaned closer. I will pay to put you through the best nursing and physical therapy program in the country. All of it. And provide a salary that will cover your mother's medical needs for the rest of her life. That's insane. It's practical. Silas needs you. He trusts you in a way he trusts no one else. What about your board? A human raising the Blackwood heir? Let me worry about the board. I thought of my mother, of her bills, of the education I thought I'd lost forever. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. That night, I told my mother everything. She listened, her breathing steady, and then said, You already know your answer, do I? You have never been able to turn your back on someone who needs you. It's both your best and worst quality. This is different. This is Valerius Blackwood. This is corporate politics, danger. And this is a father who loves his son, and a little boy whose world gets brighter every time you walk into it. She reached out and took my hand. I've held you back, haven't I? Mom, no, yes. You've put your life on hold for me. But Alara, my dear girl, I did not survive a war only to watch you just survive the peace. I want to see you live. 2 days later, I accepted Valerius's offer. Moving into the Blackwood penthouse was like stepping onto another planet. My suite of rooms was larger than our entire apartment building. The in-home therapy gym where I worked with Silas was filled with equipment I had only read about in textbooks. The household staff regarded me with a mix of suspicion and poorly veiled contempt. A human caring for the heir was unheard of. The head of the household, an older she-wolf named Matron Greymane, was the first to warm to me. She saw the way Silas's entire demeanor changed whenever I entered a room. Miss Alara, look, he would cry, having figured out how to use his powerful arms to wheel his chair across the polished floors at surprising speed. It was a small victory, but it was progress. That's amazing, little wolf. Soon you'll be doing laps around the living room. Our days fell into a routine. Mornings were for Silas's physical therapy, which I disguised as games. Afternoons were for his tutors, which I sat in on, learning about Lycan culture and corporate structures. My evenings were for my own online classes. Valerius had enrolled me in a top-tier program, and I was determined to prove him right. But it wasn't easy. Staff whispered behind my back. The human thinks she's one of the family. The alpha has lost his mind. What will happen when the board finds out? The board found out 3 weeks later. I was helping Silas with his stretches when 5 Lycans in severe business suits arrived. Their leader, a formidable alpha with auburn hair named Fenris Redmayne, a rival executive, ignored me completely. Valerius, his telepathic voice boomed. The board demands an explanation. Valerius appeared from his office, radiating both authority and annoyance. An explanation for what, precisely? Fenris, you have a human tending to your heir. I have the most qualified individual caring for my son. She isn't even a licensed therapist, asterisk. She's in the process of becoming one. And she has already proven more capable than the dozen specialists you recommended, asterisk. Fenris's jaw clenched. Asterisk, this is an affront to our pack. The heir to the Blackwood fortune cannot be raised by a former enemy. Asterisk, that's when Silas spoke, his small voice cutting through the immense tension. Miss Alara isn't an enemy. She's my friend. Children do not choose their own staff. Fenris dismissed him. This one does, Valerius growled, a dangerous edge to his mental voice. Alara stays, asterisk, then you leave us no choice. The board will call for a vote on your fitness, as CEO ***, then vote. But remember this, Fenris. The day you try to take my son from the one person who has helped him heal is the day you remember why they called me the Wolf of Wall Street during the last hostile takeover star. The executives left, but their threat lingered. I found Valerius later in his study, staring out at the city skyline. "You should send me away," I said. "It's not worth your company. The company is worthless if I can't protect my son." He turned to face me. The board fears what it doesn't understand. They fear that peace is more than just a ceasefire. Do you know the real reason I need you here, Ilera? Because Silas likes me, because you see him. Not a disabled heir, not a PR liability, not a symbol of my failure. You to see a little boy who deserves love and a chance to be happy. My face grew warm. Valerius stepped closer. The night you saved him, when you ordered me to use my power on my own son, do you know what I thought? That I was crazy, that you were the bravest person I had ever met. You stood before a fully shifted alpha and gave orders because my son was in pain. No fear, no hesitation. Only conviction. I was terrified, I admitted. But you acted anyway. That's the definition of courage. There was a powerful, charged silence between us. Then, Silas's voice came over the intercom. "Miss Ilera, Matron Greymane says I can't have ice cream before dinner. Tell her she's wrong." I laughed, breaking the spell. "Duty calls, Ilera," Valerius said as I reached the door. "Thank you." The weeks turned into months. Silas grew stronger. Not a miracle cure, but a slow, steady improvement. He learned to maneuver his chair with incredible dexterity. His upper body became powerful from our exercises, and his mind, his brilliant, curious mind, soaked up knowledge like a sponge. I grew too. My studies were grueling, but I attacked them with a passion I thought I'd lost. I became the first human to be certified in pediatric Lycan therapy. My mother's health improved dramatically with the better care, and she moved to a comfortable condo with a state-of-the-art air filtration system. And Valerius, he became my friend. We would talk for hours after Silas was asleep about the conflict, the uneasy peace, and the fragile future our two peoples were trying to build. I never thought I would trust a human again. He confessed one night as we watched Silas sleep. The boy had just managed to stand on his own for a few seconds using his braces, more than any doctor thought possible. I never thought I'd be debating the merits of craft beer versus vintage scotch with a billionaire CEO. The scotch is clearly superior. You're mistaken, and your palate is unrefined, he laughed. A deep, warm sound I was starting to cherish. Cherish? Where had that come from? "The board votes tomorrow," he said, his tone sobering. "Are you scared?" "No. Whatever happens, I know I made the right choice. Silas is happy. He is healing. That's worth more than any company. You're a good father, Valerius, and you are an extraordinary person, Ilera Vance." The board voted. 7 in favor of Valerius remaining CEO, 5 against. It was a narrow victory, but it was enough. Fenris Redmayne left the meeting in a fury, but not before cornering me in the hallway. "This isn't over, human," he snarled. "I'm not going anywhere," I replied, not looking up from the therapy schedule on my tablet. 2 weeks later, someone tried to poison Silas's food. I caught it only because I'd become obsessively careful, testing everything he ate with a chemical detection strip before serving it. The poison was sophisticated, designed to be inert until it mixed with Lycan digestive enzymes. It would have been fatal. Valerius's rage was a terrifying elemental force. He tore through the penthouse in his wolf form, his howls rattling the reinforced windows. It took both me and Silas to calm him. "Dad, you're scaring everyone," Silas said, his small voice piercing the storm of fury. "Someone tried to hurt me, but they failed. Miss Ilera protected me. She always does." Valerius's great head turned to me. "How did you know?" "I didn't. I just had a feeling. My mother always said I had a knack for spotting trouble. The would-be assassin, a disgruntled employee loyal to Fenris, was caught. During his interrogation, he said something that chilled me. The human won't always be there to save him. That night, Valerius came to my rooms. He looked exhausted, aged by the day's events. "I have to send you away," he said bluntly. "What?" "You and Silas. Somewhere safe. My secure estate in the mountains. You can continue his therapy there. You want to hide us? I want to keep you alive. Both of you. I stood, anger flaring inside me. So the extremists win? They scare you into running. This isn't about winning, Ilera. It's about your survival. And what about you? You'll stay here alone, fighting them without us. That is my duty. That one word hung between us. Your duty is to be Silas's father, and my job is to care for him. We are not leaving, Ilera. I'm begging you, no. You don't get to make unilateral decisions that affect our lives. We're a team. You, me, and Silas. That's how this works. He stared at me, and then in 3 swift strides, he crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. It was the first time we had ever touched like this. He was so warm, and I could feel the frantic, powerful beat of his heart against my own. I cannot lose you, he whispered into my hair. Either of you, you won't, I whispered back. I promise. The next morning, Silas announced he wanted to go to school. School, Valerius and I said in unison. Other kids go to school. I want to go, Silas, Valerius began. School might be challenging for you, so? Miss Ilera says challenging doesn't mean impossible. It just means we have to work harder. I felt my face flush as Valerius gave me a knowing look. You've been filling his head with inspirational quotes. Someone has to. Silas started an exclusive private school a month later. The first day, a few kids snickered at his wheelchair. A particularly cruel one, named Snarl, called him Wheels. Silas came home devastated. Maybe I shouldn't go back. Hey, I said, kneeling before him. Remember Captain Comet in the comic? What made him a hero? He was brave, he was different. The other heroes could fly, but he had a cool spaceship. And because he was different, he was the one who could understand the aliens everyone else feared. You're not a superhero, Silas. You're better. You're Silas Blackwood. And tomorrow you will go back to that school and show them that different is not the same as less. Will you come with me? Always, little wolf. The next day, during the school's field day, when Snarl tried to bully Silas again, I did something not found in any therapy textbook. I proposed a race. Snarl, with his 2 healthy legs, against Silas in his wheelchair. Silas won, not because he was faster, but because Snarl, in his arrogance, took a shortcut through a sprinkler system and slipped in the mud. Silas just kept going, slow and steady, his powerful arms pumping until he crossed the finish line. The other kids cheered, and Silas beamed with a pride that lit up his entire face. You rigged that race, Valerius said that evening, a smile playing on his lips. I have no idea what you're talking about. Snarl's shortcut just happened to pass by the sprinklers that turn on automatically at 10 a.m. Very distracting for a young boy, a complete coincidence. You are devious. I prefer to think of it as strategic, he laughed. Then his expression turned serious. The board's matriarch wishes to speak with you. Me? Why? They want to understand why you're so important to Silas. And to me, the last words were spoken softly, but they landed in my heart like a thunderclap. The meeting was in the main boardroom, a cavernous chamber where the alphas could sit without feeling constrained. I stood in the center, feeling very small and human. Ilera Vance, came the mental voice of an old alpha I didn't know. You're accused of holding undue influence over the Blackwood line. That's not illegal, I pointed out. Silence. Another alpha snapped. No, I said, my voice ringing with sudden clarity. You want to know why I'm here? Fine. I'm here because a little boy needed help, and his father was brave enough to accept it from a human. I'm here because I believe the future of our society depends on seeing each other as more than just old enemies. And I'm here because I love that little boy as if he were my own son. You presume too much, human. I presume nothing. I work, I study, and I care for Silas with every fiber of my being. If that's a threat to you, maybe you should ask yourselves why the oldest she-wolf there, Valerius's grandmother, rose from her seat at the head of the table. Would you die for the boy? Yes. Would you break the law for him? I considered it. If I had to asterisk and the CEO, what is he to you? Asterisk, that was the real question. My boss. My friend? Something more? He is a father who loves his son, I said at last. Everything else is secondary to that. The ancient she-wolf studied me, her wise eyes seeming to peer into my soul. Then she addressed the board. Asterisk, I approve. The human speaks with an honest heart. The boy thrives. And my grandson has finally remembered how to smile. The human stays asterisk that night. Valerius pulled me aside during a quiet celebration. Thank you, he said. For what you said, I meant every word. I looked up at him, this powerful CEO who had become the center of my world. I love you, he said, his voice raw with emotion. I think I have since the day you tried to refuse my tip, because kindness shouldn't have a price. I love how you see my son, how you challenge me, how you've made my broken family feel whole again. I didn't speak. I simply rose on my toes and kissed him. It was complicated and unprofessional and absolutely perfect. When we parted, he was smiling. Well, I said, breathless. This will certainly make our employment arrangement awkward, he laughed. Everything about us is awkward. A Lycan alpha and a human therapist, raising a disabled son and trying to mend a fractured world. Awkward is our baseline when you put it that way. Ilara, I'm not asking you to be my Luna. I am only asking if you could love me back. I do, I said, against all logic. I do. A small voice came from the doorway. Does this mean Miss Ilara is going to be my mom? We turned to see Silas, hovering in his chair, his expression hopeful. That's not quite how it works, little wolf, I began. But I want you to be. You take care of me, and you show me comics, and you make Dad happy. That's what moms do. Tears welled in my eyes. If you want me to be your mom, Silas, then that's what I'll be. He wheeled himself into my arms, burying his face in my side. Mom, he tested the word. I like it. 6 months later, I graduated from my program at the top of my class. My mother was there, breathing easily. Valerius and Silas sat in the front row, a CEO and his heir, beaming with pride. A year after that, Valerius and I were married in a ceremony that shocked the business world, the first official union between a high-pack Lycan and a human. Fenris Redmayne was not invited. The important part came later, in our private suite, when Silas, after weeks of therapy, took his first unassisted steps. He only made it a few feet, his legs still weak, but he did it. Look, Mom, he cried. I'm like you. I held him tight, tears of joy streaming down my face. You are perfect, little wolf. Absolutely perfect. 5 years later, I stood in that same boardroom, this time as a member of the board of directors, watching Silas address the company's foundation. He was 12, still using a cane for support, but radiating strength and confidence. He was proposing a scholarship fund for integrated schools, where human and Lycan children could learn side by side. We are not enemies, he said, his voice ringing with conviction. We were only strangers. We can learn from each other. I learned from my mother, who was born human but has the heart of a wolf, and from my father, who was born a wolf but learned to love with the heart of a man. If they can build a bridge between our worlds, so can we all. The board voted unanimously in his favor. That night, as we watched Silas play a video game with his younger sister, a perfectly healthy little girl who called me Mama and saw nothing strange about her family, Valerius took my hand. Do you ever regret it? The day you tried to avoid my tip? Never, I said. Though I sometimes wonder what my life would be if I'd just taken the money you couldn't have. It's not who you are, no, I agreed. It isn't, Mom. Silas called. Tell Alina the story of Captain Comet again. We've heard it 1,000 times, his sister complained. It's a good story, Silas insisted. And Mom tells it best. I looked at my impossible, improbable, perfect family and smiled. All right, but this time, let's give Captain Comet a Lycan sidekick. As I began the tale, I thought about that rainy day in the bistro. How one small act of compassion had rewritten not just my own destiny, but the future of two peoples. Sometimes kindness is its own reward, and sometimes a waitress and a CEO can heal each other. And they lived happily ever after? Alina asked when I was done. No, I said, pulling her close. They lived happily right now. Ever after is something we build every day. Outside, the city lights glittered, casting a gentle glow into our home. It wasn't a perfect world. There was still prejudice, still opposition. But as I watched my human-born daughter doze against her Lycan brother, while their alpha father hummed an old human lullaby, I knew we were creating something better. What are you thinking? Valerius asked, his arm around me. Just remembering, I said, the day you walked into the restaurant. I thought you were just another rich customer, and I thought you were just another waitress. Funny how wrong we both were, or how right, he murmured, kissing my hair. Sometimes the world knows what we need long before we do. Silas was asleep, his breathing deep and even. His cane leaned against the sofa, a custom design model I had helped create. He might never run like the other wolves, but he was becoming something new, a bridge. He's going to change the world, I whispered. He already has, Valerius replied. The moment you decided he was worth loving, worth fighting for, that changed everything. I didn't do it alone, no, he agreed. We did it together. The CEO who learned to trust, the waitress who learned to lead, and the little boy who showed us the way. I leaned into my husband's warmth, watching our children sleep, thinking of the years to come. It wouldn't be easy, but as I told Silas all that time ago, challenging didn't mean impossible. It just meant we had to try harder. And together we would.